Hello, how y'all doing today? I hope y'all are doing well. I hope it's been a good week. It's time to get started with this week in supervision. And this is the opportunity where we try to go over certain things that I've talked about in supervision. So some of the people that have come out of supervision or others out of our supervisor training can learn different things that they can share with their supervisees. But a lot of times we're just learning some clinical skills here. And today we want to talk about some of the tools and some of the things that we can use as clinicians to provide diagnosis. Now, I am a firm believer that we want to have as much as we can insights in our minds. We want to be able to recall just from our own memory. And that's kind of what I try to teach with my supervisees is try to have them to be able to kind of know, and I give them mnemonics and things like that. Maybe I'll talk about that one day. But I think that it helps to kind of know symptoms just off the top of your head. So while you're talking to the client, you can start ruling things out with just from your questioning, because most of us don't want to just carry around a DSM as we're doing our assessment. But there's a variety of different ways that we can do assessment. So I want to talk about that today, and I want to talk about some of the things that I use, like vignettes. And I'm going to give an example of a vignette that we use in supervision to help the supervisees to try to understand how to diagnose, but then to also use the tool in a situation to help them to come to their conclusions. So I'm so happy to have everybody. Those of you who are watching, we're going to try to not make this too long. What is it? 1:45. All right, we're going to try to jump into it. But before we do, I definitely got to talk about our supervisor training that we have coming up in November. So if you're a clinical supervisor, if you want to become a clinical supervisor, I advise you to come and check us out. We have a dynamic training. We would love to have you there. And a lot of people have been asking, like, okay, are y'all going to have this DSM training that's required for social workers? And we are trying to get something on the books right now, but we got to make sure we got the right people to show up. All right. So anyway, want to move on to the subject matter here. And so how do we diagnose? Like, all right, so what I like to do is bring up scenarios, and I got a challenging scenario that I want you all to take a look at, and I want you to see if you can determine. Oh man, I almost gave away the answer here. If you can determine what the diagnosis is for this person. It may seem kind of simple for some of us, but believe it or not, I found it to be challenging with my supervisees. Okay, it was a challenge. We had some good feedback on this, so let me get to it. So this is the scenario I brought up. I'll do test questions and things like that, but I like to bring in scenarios, whether it's through video, and I haven't been able to show some of the video that I would like to show here because of different little rules, and we want to give attribution and all that kind of stuff, but we're gonna go with this here. So here we have John is a project manager. He normally is extroverted, but recently, since he changed his job, he has been very isolated. Now, I want to make a point that, hey, I just came up with this. I just came up with the scenario, the symptoms, whatever. I threw it in the chat GPT, and then it just made it look good for me. So this is something that you can do. And I wanted to include a lot of the symptoms. But recently, since he changed his job, he has been very isolated. Okay, so that's something that's telling us something. He has complained of having changes with his energy and regrets about moving into his new position. He has also been having significant regrets about major decisions that he has made in his life. Now, that's significant too, up to this point. The rumination of thoughts and changing behaviors has been going on for a month now. He has been having difficulty concentrating on the job and is very distracted, often losing his thoughts when he's away from the job. He's also stopped working because he stopped working out because of the location of the gym. He says the location of the gym is too far away from his current job, so he's not even working out anymore. John says that his appetite has changed along with his energy. John also has complained about being bored and often restless, pacing the house. What is likely John's diagnosis? So this is something that I found very interesting. I really enjoyed walking through the scenario with the group, because what you can do is have them again do a breakout session and come back and say, hey, look, what I want you to do is determine what John's diagnosis is, and I want you to write out each and every symptom. And you put up this scenario here where they can see it in the chat. Let them bring back, and this, especially if you're in a group, this helps you to be able to determine individually each person's competency level. Okay, and so what I would do is just go around the room. But one thing that I mentioned that I think should be stressed is that many times when we're trying to recognize symptoms, sometimes it's up to us to determine for ourselves what's really going on in the situation, aside from what the client is telling us, right? So in this situation, the client is saying that, you know what, I stopped working out because of my location. You know, I had a change in location since the new job, so I stopped working out. So what I challenged the group was, I asked them questions like, you know, do you feel like this is a valid explanation for why he's not working out? Because it was a change in location. And I mentioned that sometimes you have to make the clinical judgment that, like, if certain things are sizing up in a certain way, that are suggesting a certain thing as far as diagnosis and what have you, sometimes you have to ask questions. So I'm going to want to know, like, you know, if you stop working out, how long were you working out before you stopped just now? You know, if they tell me like 2 or 3 years I was working out steady, working out at least 3 times a week, now I'm not doing anything, that's going to make me very suspicious that, you know, it's kind of seeming like you're having a change here. And a lot of times the clients are not even aware that they're experiencing a change when it's occurring. So I may have to determine as a clinician that, and talk that out with them, that, you know what, I think that maybe possibly, you know, if I was feeling good, I probably would have made that trip that was 30 minutes away as opposed to a 5-minute trip. And I might even ask the client, has there ever been a time when you had to travel further to work out? So that's telling us that, hey man, there's something that's going on different. So anyway, we had the clinicians, my supervisees, to choose what they thought the diagnosis was, and many of them came up with depression. Some of them came up with adjustment disorder, and that's where we got into the exchange, like that. And this is the inquisitive type of questions you want to ask, is like, okay, what separates depression from an adjustment disorder? Because is there anywhere in the criteria for depression, you know, to where it says, hey, if the symptoms that we see, if there's presently all the symptoms of depression there, but they came about because there was a change, you know, that, you know, an adjustment, a change, like what he experienced, a change in the job, would that mean that that would not be depression? And I didn't see that. You know, somebody could put in the chat if they you know, want to correct me on that. It still should be depression. And so what we're looking at is frequency, intensity, and duration. And sometimes you have to make a clinical judgment, and you might go one way or another. But it was an interesting thing that no one knew about that may help us to make a decision on this, because some people were strong on adjustment. Adjustment disorders basically is saying, yeah, you know what? Oh, let me hurry up. Adjustment disorder is basically saying that, hey, it's the development of emotional or behavioral symptoms in response to an identifiable stressor. The job was an identifiable stressor, so wouldn't it be that? We have to understand sometimes what some of these diagnoses were created for. And sometimes I think, like, the adjustment disorder is to try to give us space if we don't have room, if we don't have enough symptoms, if we're just starting off and we don't have enough symptoms to qualify someone to be diagnosed in another area. Adjustment disorder, the symptoms are kind of vague, and it gives you room to still have something to code while you may still be determining, you know, if there's something else that you've been missing. But so the thing was, do we have to make the decision on this, is on adjustment disorder under C, it says, let me flip to that. I think I have that here. Nope, that's not what we're looking for. It says the stress-related disturbance does not meet the criteria for another mental disorder and is not merely an exacerbation of a pre-existing mental disorder. So that's going to make me question if we should do adjustment disorder or not. And I went with depression, even though I made up the scenario. I guess I am supposed to be an expert, but I don't. So that's what I chose. That's what I chose for that one. Now, this is what we want to transition to. All right. So once we have a diagnosis and things like that, we want to help our clinicians to be able to understand tools, or while we're still trying to determine diagnosis, and say that your clinician is needing help with determining, is this this or that. Well, of course, we want to use the DSM. I like the little quick reference because when I get the big ones, I never use them. But we also want to use other tools as well. And so that's what I asked them. I said, if you were to try to diagnose and you wanted to use something more empirical to help you with your diagnosis, what kind of tools might you use? Okay. And so that's where we get to some other tools. What type of tools would you suggest that they use? And I want to share my screen, and we're going to show a few. We're going to show a few. I hope. Okay. Where is it? That what we're looking at. Okay. All right. So let's go on back here. And this is one. Beck's Depression Inventory. Now, I'm not going to lie, I don't use this one that much, but basically it's kind of a self-scored assessment. You let them kind of just fill in what it is, and it asks all the questions you need. And guess what? At the bottom, there's the key. All right. The one I like is the PHQ-9. Okay. And I'm going to try to put this link in the chat for you. It gives you instructions on how to rate them. And all this is based on DSM. I love this. It's all based on DSM. So they keep it pretty simple with this. And guess what? So based on what you put here, it shows up here. So it scores it for you, and you get to notice, boom. I just used this with the client, and because they had not been showing the significant depression levels that they had before, and I'm like, man, maybe we're phased out. And so I did this, and we found out that they had gone from over here to over here, which shows remarkable improvement. It's good for your notes as well. Anyway, we're at time. I hope that this is helpful. These are just some tools that, you want to make sure your supervisees have in the box. If you haven't been using them, you want to make sure maybe that you have it in the box to help with your assessments and things of that nature. I'm going to end it here. I hope to see you all again next week. Thanks for joining. All right. Bye-bye.